Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We got a call yesterday, not during the show, but during the show, but to our line, not live. But it was from a trucker who, provides the kind of common sense you get from truckers, which is why we need more truckers in public office when they can find the time. But anyway, he said, here's an idea for Trump to post the $454 million bond he needs to appeal the Star Chamber imposition that was imposed in New York. Sell Mar-a-Lago. Forget allowing Letitia James to occupy the penthouse at Trump Tower. Sell Mar-a-Lago. Get, $300 or $400 million for it, and then demonstrate how fallacious this, $18 million valuation was that was part of the claims lodged against Trump during the trial. I'll tell you what, I'm not saying he sells Mar-a-Lago, but I think he should put it up for sale just to see what the market would bear, and report that publicly to cast that same cloud over this persecution at the hands of Letitia James in Manhattan. That's a good idea. It is a good idea. I mean, it was spawned by this truck driver's call, but I love that. What will Trump actually do? Will he turn over Trump Tower to her?
Oh my God. Or 40 Wall Street? What's he going to do?
And
I want to get the visuals of that.
And then use that to, superimpose him in his penthouse there, and really maybe use that, essentially drive the illustration of the unfairness of this all and the ridiculousness of it all, even more so than can Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary. Well, for more on that and other political matters, we're pleased to be joined by John Hinderaker, founder of Powerline blog, powerlineblog.com, and Center for the American Experiment. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, great to be with you, Dan.
So what do you think about the approach Trump should pursue, given that it's unlikely he can put up $500 million to appeal the decision, at least in the short term?
Dan, I honestly don't know. If somebody asked me, where do you go to get $500 million in cash? I don't know the answer to that question. I've never been in that position. Some people are saying he should just walk away from Trump Tower. And, of course, part of the subtext here is that the commercial real estate market in New York City has collapsed. And whatever value any of these buildings had in, say, 2019, their value today is a lot less. And I could see some merit to the idea of walking away from Trump Tower and saying to Letitia James, okay, it's yours, you take it. What's she going to do with it?
Then he'd never get it back.
Well, he probably wouldn't get it back. No, you're right. Well, he probably wouldn't.
It's so crazy.
It is really incredible. So what's your take in terms of how Trump is handling these persecutions, particularly with the prospect that the staying in Manhattan, that the Alvin Bragg trial will begin next month, and will be adjudicated before the summer, and Trump will perhaps, I think likely, be found guilty again because of the nature of the jury pool and the justice system, such as it is in New York. Is he doing enough on the front end to prepare people for that? Again, the polling that suggests it may not be a kill shot for him, but the idea of Trump convicted felon and then $500 million worth of advertising saying we can't have a convicted felon in the White House, that does seem to be a prospect, according to polling, that drives some independence off of him. And look, he's up in swing states, but these are not insurmountable leads. And so that's a real wild card in my estimation.
Well, I think you're right, Dan. I've seen the same polling that you have. And his strategy, in part, has been one of delay. And of course, some of these prosecutions were brought. Prosecutor, what's his name, Jack Smith, waited 2 years, and then he started his prosecution, clearly trying to interfere in the 2024 presidential election. And then he's foiled, by delays. The courts don't necessarily go along with the prosecutor's timetables. But I think you're right. I think it's a real problem for Trump if he's actually convicted by a jury of a crime between now and the election. And we've seen, any trial lawyer will tell you that the most important thing that he does in a trial is to pick the jury, and the most important variable in a case is who decides it. We saw that. I was in Washington, D.C., as you may remember, for a couple days of the trial of Michael Mann against Mark Stein. And everybody on Mark's side thought, wow, this trial's going really well, and it was. But at the end of the day, the jury was a Washington, D.C. jury that was thoroughly imbued with the whole global warming narrative, and the facts didn't really matter. And I think something similar is likely to happen to Trump if he goes to trial in Manhattan. Who's going to decide that case? No matter how weak the case is, it's going to be an anti-Trump jury. It's a big problem.
The House Republican impeachment inquiry and the testimony from Bob Alinsky and Jason Galanis, former business partners of Hunter Biden. Of course, we know Bob Alinsky because of his public profile over the last 4 years, starting with pre-2020 election with Tucker Carlson. There's some sort of ennui among some Republicans with respect to pursuing a Biden impeachment because, of course, it's going nowhere in the Senate. And so, you know the arguments. But I think it matters. And I think yesterday was a good example of why it matters. And I have no problem with unleashing Tony Bobolinsky on Democrats and reminding everybody with the explicit detail he has of of what this Biden hillbilly crime family has been doing and how these Democrats like Raskin and Goldman and Ro Khanna have been lying to protect them.
Yeah, impeachment is a political act, right? And there's no duty to impeach a president, particularly when you know it's going nowhere in the Senate. And so I think the Republicans need to carefully weigh the pros and cons of actually impeaching President Biden, make sure they got the votes. It's not obvious to me. They got a very slim majority in the House. It's not obvious to me that all the Republicans would vote for impeachment. They don't want to pull that trigger and then miss. What the Democrats keep doing is, number one, try to turn the hearing into a farce, and they're reasonably successful at that through their own conduct. And number two, keep moving the goalposts. Checks didn't go into Joe Biden's checking account. They went into his relatives' checking accounts. Well, that's how you do it. If you're going to bribe a politician, you don't write checks to him. You write checks to his relatives. Yeah, but under the federal bribery statute, it doesn't make any difference.
But they did write a check to him. They did write a check to him. That's the problem. They're so incompetent at even this with all the shell companies they set up. He did get a check directly from his brother for a loan repayment doesn't show up on the other side of the ledger. It doesn't show up for him.
That's true. That is true. But I think it's important for the Republicans not to allow those goalposts to keep moving and moving and moving. The Democrats like to frame the question, was Joe involved in Hunter's business? Well, the short answer to that is Hunter didn't have a business. What business was Hunter Biden in? None. He didn't have a business. Right. His only business was selling access to his father. That was his only business. Right. And whether Joe ever did anything for these clients of his, it doesn't make any difference. He sold access to him, and that is a federal crime, and that is an impeachable offense.
We were talked about it a little bit earlier, but I see Uber and Lyft are leaving your fair city.
Yeah, this is great, Dan. So I travel a lot, as you may know, and when my wife and I travel, of course, we get an Uber to the Twin Cities airport from our house. We can't do that anymore because Uber has suspended service throughout the Twin Cities metro area. It's wonderful. The Minneapolis City Council adopted an ordinance with minimum hourly rates for Uber and Lyft drivers. And when they did that, there were some people in the audience who were cheering and jumping up and down, yay, I'm going to get a raise. Well, no, actually, you're not going to get a raise.
You're going to get a pink slip.
Your pay now goes to zero, and so I don't know. They may reconsider that move. We'll see.
Well, what are they going to do? Everyone's going to become a taxi driver now?
I don't know.
Did you have to buy medallions up there like you have to in the city of Chicago?
Yeah. We have the most expensive taxis in the world here in the Twin Cities, by the way. That's been a very lucrative business until Uber came along. It was great to be a taxi driver, not so much anymore.
Well, if Ilhan Omar's family members start buying up taxi medallions in the city of Minneapolis, you know which way this is going. Before we let you go, I just wanted to get an update. You know, the last time we had you on, you were recovering from your offices in Minneapolis being firebombed, which is not an inconsequential development. So where does that all stand?
Well, the investigation has not yet caught the criminals, and I'm starting to lose my optimism that it's going to. But as far as we're concerned, it's all okay. We are moving into new space, which is newer, nicer, bigger, better in every way. Move slated for April 15. So bottom line is we worked remotely for a couple of months. Now we're moving into better quarters. So whoever was hoping to disrupt our business, disrupt our work, failed. That's the good news. The bad news is, at least so far, they haven't been caught.
John Hinderaker, president of the Center of the American Experiment and founder and contributor to PowerlineBlog.com. John, thanks as always.
Great to be with you, Dan. Have a good day.
Thanks. And he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
And Doug. To celebrate everyone who's customized and saved hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual, we got a savings